If you are over 60 and you are swallowing raw garlic on an empty stomach every morning to lower your blood pressure, I need you to stop immediately. The alternative health community has convinced you that this is a harmless natural cure. Clinically speaking, you are triggering a gastrointestinal disaster. You are not taking medicine. You are dropping a highly reactive, corrosive sulfur compound directly onto the thinning, vulnerable lining of your aging stomach. You are actively risking acute ulcerations and internal bleeding, all while believing you are doing your heart a favor. I am Dr. Anya. Before you swallow another clove, you must understand the dangerous pharmacology of this plant, the fatal interactions it has with your daily medications, and the precise 10-minute enzyme protocol required to extract the cardiovascular benefits without destroying your gut. Let us strip away the folklore and look at garlic through the lens of clinical pharmacology. You see this bulb as food. You see it as a flavor enhancer or a holistic remedy handed down through generations. But biologically, the garlic plant does not care about your heart health. The compounds inside this clove evolved for one specific reason: biological defense. They are designed to be toxic to pests, fungi, and bacteria that try to eat the plant in the wild. When you hold a whole, unbroken clove of garlic, it actually contains zero active medicine. It has no cardiovascular benefits, no immune-boosting properties, and virtually no smell. Inside that intact cellular structure, there are two separate, isolated compartments. In one compartment, you have an amino acid called Allicin. In the other compartment, you have an enzyme called alliinase. As long as the clove is whole, they never meet. But the moment you crush, chop, or chew that clove, you destroy the cellular walls. You force that enzyme to violently crash into the amino acid. This collision triggers an instantaneous biochemical explosion, creating a brand new, highly reactive sulfur compound called allicin. Allicin is the true medicine. It is the chemical responsible for the pungent odor, the intense burning sensation on your tongue, and the documented clinical ability to dilate blood vessels and lower blood pressure. But here is the biological reality the holistic gurus refuse to tell you. Allicin is incredibly volatile and caustic. It is a harsh, sulfur-based chemical weapon. When you introduce pure, concentrated allicin into the human digestive tract, it demands respect. If you mishandle it, if you time it wrong, or if you expose it to the wrong environment, it will not heal you. It will actively burn your tissue.
And that brings us to the absolute most dangerous mistake seniors make every single morning. A mistake that sends people to the emergency room with severe gastrointestinal hemorrhaging.
Let's expose the most dangerous trend on the internet right now. There are hundreds of videos telling you to wake up, crush a clove of raw garlic, and swallow it with a glass of water on a completely empty stomach to maximize absorption. From a gastroenterology perspective, this is a recipe for disaster, especially if you are over the age of 60. As we age, the mucosal lining of our stomach naturally begins to thin. The protective barrier of mucus that shields your stomach wall from its own acid becomes weaker and more vulnerable to irritation. When you swallow raw, freshly crushed garlic on a fasted stomach, you are dropping concentrated, caustic allicin directly onto unprotected tissue. Because there is no food to buffer the chemical reaction, the allicin acts as a severe irritant. It rapidly degrades the already compromised mucosal layer, triggering acute, localized inflammation.
You feel it almost immediately as severe heartburn, acid reflux, or a sharp, cramping pain in your upper abdomen. But the damage goes much deeper than temporary discomfort. Clinical studies are very clear on this. When individuals with pre-existing gastritis or minor stomach ulcers, conditions that are incredibly common and often undiagnosed in older adults, consume raw garlic in an empty, acidic environment, the allicin aggressively worsens the lesions. It burns into the compromised tissue. It can cause the ulcers to deepen, leading to microscopic hemorrhages. If you repeat this habit daily, thinking you are doing something healthy, you are actively increasing your risk of a major ulcer perforation and severe internal bleeding. In clinical tracking, a significant percentage of ulcer patients who consumed raw garlic required hospitalization due to gastrointestinal hemorrhaging. They thought they were treating their blood pressure, and instead, they destroyed their stomach lining. You must understand that the digestive tract is not a steel pipe. It is delicate, living tissue. If you are experiencing bloating, nausea, or burning after taking your morning garlic, your body is not detoxing. It is screaming at you that it is experiencing a chemical burn. You cannot use a biological defense mechanism like Allicin without a buffer. But before I give you the exact extraction protocol to protect your gut, we have to talk about the opposite end of the spectrum. Because the second massive mistake people make isn't burning their stomach, it's completely wasting their time by eating garlic that is biologically dead.
Now, let us look at the other extreme. When patients realize that raw garlic is burning their stomach lining, they immediately pivot to the opposite approach. They decide to cook it. Here is the exact scenario that plays out in millions of kitchens every evening. You take a chef's knife, you mince 2 cloves of fresh garlic, and you immediately scrape them off the cutting board and straight into a hot, sizzling skillet. Congratulations! You have just completely sterilized your food. You are about to consume a biologically dead plant. To understand why this is a massive pharmacological failure, you have to remember the 2 compounds we just talked about, the amino acid allicin and the enzyme alliinase. When you mince the garlic, you break the cell walls and allow them to mix. You start the chemical reaction.
But here is the critical detail the cooking shows leave out. That biochemical reaction is not instantaneous. It takes time for the enzyme to properly synthesize and convert the amino acid into the active medicine allicin. Enzymes are highly sensitive biological proteins. When you expose the alliinase enzyme to direct heat, specifically anything above 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius, it denatures. The heat permanently destroys the enzyme's physical structure. It is instantly killed. If you throw freshly minced garlic into a hot pan before the allicin has had the time to fully form, the chemical process permanently stops. The medicine is never created. You get the savory smell, you get the culinary taste, but your cardiovascular system gets absolutely nothing. You are eating empty fiber. If you want the biological, blood pressure-lowering benefits of garlic without the raw chemical burn to your stomach, you must adhere strictly to the 10-minute enzyme rule. This is a non-negotiable clinical practice. You crush, mince, or press the garlic on your cutting board. And then you do absolutely nothing. You step away. You leave that minced garlic exposed to the air for exactly 10 full minutes. Do not look at it as resting. Look at it as a required pharmacological incubation period. During those 10 uninterrupted minutes, the enzymes are furiously working outside of the cellular walls, converting all available compounds into maximum strength allicin. Here is the biological magic of this rule. Once the allicin is fully synthesized, the compound actually becomes significantly more heat stable. After the 10 minutes have passed, you can safely add the garlic to your pan on a low to medium heat. The enzyme has already done its job, and the medicine is locked in. You have successfully bypassed the raw gastric burn, you have protected the integrity of your stomach lining, and you have preserved the exact vascular compound your heart needs. But even if you follow this rule perfectly, you might still be making a mistake that renders the garlic completely useless before you even buy it. Let's talk about the dangerous illusion of convenience and why you must never buy your garlic pre-peeled in a jar.
Before we address the pre-peeled garlic, we must dismantle another widespread, dangerous illusion, the swallow it whole method. I see this constantly with patients who want the cardiovascular benefits of garlic, but are desperate to avoid the pungent breath or the sharp taste. They take an entire unpeeled or freshly peeled clove, pop it in their mouth, and swallow it with water, exactly as if they were taking an aspirin or a multivitamin capsule. Clinically speaking, this is not just ineffective, it is biologically absurd. Remember the core mechanism. The medicine, allicin, does not exist inside an intact clove. The two precursor chemicals are trapped in separate cellular compartments. The only way to trigger the synthesis of the medicine is through mechanical destruction, crushing, slicing, or chewing.
When you swallow a clove whole, you are bypassing the required mechanical activation entirely. You are sending an unbroken, highly fibrous, impenetrable biological vault straight into your digestive system. Your stomach acid is strong, but it is not designed to efficiently break down the dense, cellulose structure of an intact, raw garlic clove. As a result, the clove travels through your stomach and into your small intestine largely undigested. The internal cellular walls are never breached. The enzyme and the amino acid never meet. Zero allicin is produced. Zero medicine enters your bloodstream. But the failure doesn't stop there. This habit actively creates a secondary problem. Because the clove remains intact, it moves into your lower intestinal tract, where it becomes food for your gut bacteria. As those bacteria attempt to ferment this dense, unbroken mass of raw fiber, they produce significant amounts of gas. This leads to severe abdominal distension, painful cramping, and intense bloating. You are subjecting your digestive system to an uncomfortable, fermenting mess, while completely starving your cardiovascular system of the very compound you were trying to consume. You are treating a complex biological plant like a pharmaceutical pill, and your body is rejecting the process. If you want the benefits of garlic, you cannot avoid the chemistry. You must break the cells. If you are trying to bypass the process because you are using poor quality garlic that tastes harsh or causes immediate indigestion, you might be falling victim to the convenience trap. And that brings us to the severe risks of buying pre-peeled garlic in a jar.
Let us address the dangerous illusion of modern convenience that is entirely neutralizing your efforts and potentially putting your life at risk. Walk into any grocery store today and you will see shelves lined with jars of pre-peeled garlic cloves, or worse, minced garlic submerged in oil, sitting at room temperature. The food industry markets this as a time-saving solution for cooking. Clinically speaking, you are purchasing a jar of oxidized, biologically dead fiber that carries a severe toxicological risk. You must understand the anatomy of the garlic bulb. That dry, papery skin on the outside of the clove is not just inconvenient packaging. It is a vital biological shield. It protects the volatile amino acids inside from exposure to oxygen and moisture. The exact moment a machine strips that skin away in a processing plant, the clock starts ticking.
The clove is exposed to the air and rapid oxidation begins. The precursor compounds required to make allicin begin to evaporate and degrade. By the time that pre-peeled garlic is packaged, shipped, and sits on a supermarket shelf for weeks, its medicinal potential has plummeted to near zero. When you buy a jar of pre-minced garlic, you are buying a culinary placebo. It might vaguely taste like garlic, but the active cardiovascular compounds are long gone. But the degradation of the medicine is not the most alarming part. The true danger lies in how this pre-peeled garlic is often stored, particularly when people try to replicate these jars at home by peeling cloves and submerging them in olive oil. Garlic is grown in the soil, which means it naturally carries spores of a bacterium called Clostridium botulinum. In an oxygen-rich environment, these spores are entirely harmless. But when you take a raw, peeled, low-acid plant like garlic and submerge it in a jar of oil, you completely cut off the oxygen supply. You have just created the perfect anaerobic incubation chamber. In this oxygen-free environment, especially if the jar is left at room temperature, those harmless spores wake up. They multiply rapidly and produce one of the most lethal neurotoxins known to modern science, the botulinum toxin. For a senior patient, botulism is not just a mild case of food poisoning. It is a severe paralytic illness. It attacks the nervous system, starting with blurred vision and difficulty swallowing, and can rapidly progress to total respiratory failure. The medical establishment sees cases of botulism poisoning every single year from people who left homemade garlic-infused oil sitting on their kitchen counter. Convenience is not worth your life, and it is certainly not worth destroying the very medicine you are trying to consume. You must buy whole bulbs, wrapped in their natural papery skin, and peel them only at the exact moment you are ready to initiate the 10-minute enzyme rule. However, even if you buy the freshest bulb, activate the enzymes perfectly, and protect your stomach lining, you could still trigger a fatal medical emergency if you combine this powerful plant with the wrong prescription drugs. And that brings us to the most critical warning of this entire masterclass.
This is the most critical warning I will give you today. If you are over 60 and currently taking daily prescription medications, you must listen to this very carefully. Because garlic is sold in the produce aisle, the average person assumes it is universally safe. They assume that if one clove is good for the heart, then a daily handful of raw cloves or high-dose concentrated garlic supplements must be better. This is a dangerous, fundamental misunderstanding of pharmacology. Allicin is not just a mild health booster. It is a highly potent, biologically active compound that exerts a powerful physical effect on your bloodstream. Clinically, Allicin acts as a powerful antiplatelet aggregator. In simple terms, it stops your blood cells from sticking together. It is a natural, aggressive blood thinner. If you have high blood pressure or poor circulation, this natural blood thinning effect is exactly what you want.
It helps the blood flow smoothly and reduces the risk of dangerous clots. But what happens when you combine a potent natural blood thinner with a synthetic pharmaceutical blood thinner? Millions of seniors are currently taking daily low-dose aspirin, clopidogrel, warfarin, or newer anticoagulants to manage their heart conditions. When you take these prescription drugs, your doctor has carefully calculated the exact dosage to keep your blood thin enough to prevent a stroke, but thick enough to clot if you get cut. When you add large amounts of raw garlic or concentrated garlic supplements on top of those medications, you destroy that careful calculation. You are creating a severe pharmacological overlap. You are thinning your blood twice. You push your cardiovascular system past the point of safety and into a state of severe hemorrhagic risk. In this state, a minor accident becomes a medical emergency. A simple shaving cut will not stop bleeding. A minor bruise from bumping into a table turns into a massive, dark hematoma because you are bleeding under the skin. And if you need an emergency medical procedure or even a routine dental extraction, you are putting your life and your surgeon's ability to save you in extreme jeopardy. Clinical case studies have documented patients who consumed large amounts of raw garlic prior to surgery. When the surgeon made the incision, they could not control the bleeding. The patient's blood clotting time was delayed by up to 250% beyond the normal range. What should have been a standard 30-minute procedure turned into a near-fatal hemorrhagic crisis. This is the unbreakable clinical rule regarding garlic and surgery. You must completely stop consuming all raw garlic, cooked garlic, and especially garlic supplements a full 10 days before any scheduled medical or dental procedure. No exceptions. Do not treat this powerful plant like a casual seasoning. It is a potent biological agent. Now, for those of you who are not on blood thinners and want to safely harness the cardiovascular power of Allicin without destroying your stomach lining, I am going to give you the exact Step-by-step clinical protocol to do it correctly.
We have established the dangers. You know that swallowing it whole is useless, that throwing it immediately into a hot pan kills the medicine, and that taking it on an empty stomach will burn your gastric mucosa. Now I am going to give you the exact protocol to extract the maximum cardiovascular benefits of Allicin safely, effectively, and without damaging your digestive tract. This is the clinical buffer protocol. Step 1. The mechanical activation. Take a fresh, firm clove of garlic from an unpeeled bulb. Peel it right then and there. Place it on your cutting board and use the flat side of a heavy knife to crush it completely. You must break the cellular walls. If you have poor grip strength, use a high-quality garlic press. The more thoroughly you crush the tissue, the more allicin and allinase you force together. Step 2. The pharmacological incubation. Once the garlic is crushed or minced, step away. You must enforce the 10-minute enzyme rule.
Set a timer. During these 10 minutes, the enzymes are doing the heavy lifting, synthesizing the volatile allicin. Do not apply heat. Do not add acid. Just let the biochemistry happen in the open air. Step 3. The biological buffer. This is the most critical step to protect your stomach lining. You can never ingest this newly formed allicin on an empty stomach. You must create a biological buffer to safely carry the caustic compound through your acidic stomach and into your small intestine, where it can be absorbed into your bloodstream. The best vehicle for allicin is healthy fat or complex protein. If you are cooking, now is the time to add the incubated garlic to your pan. Keep the heat low to medium to protect the stabilized allicin and cook it briefly with a high-quality fat, like extra virgin olive oil. The oil coats the garlic particles, preventing them from directly irritating the gastric mucosa when swallowed. If you want the absolute maximum potency of raw allicin without the burn, you must mix the incubated garlic into a dense, protective base before eating it. A tablespoon of full-fat, plain Greek yogurt is excellent. The dairy proteins and fats encapsulate the allicin. Alternatively, mixing it into a dressing made primarily of extra virgin olive oil and a small amount of lemon juice provides both a lipid buffer and a mild acid to slow the chemical burn. By using a fat or protein buffer, you are essentially creating a natural capsule. The garlic passes safely through the harsh environment of the stomach and is slowly, safely absorbed in the intestinal tract. You get the vasodilation, you get the blood pressure support, and your stomach lining remains completely intact. This is how you use a biological tool correctly. You respect its power, you understand its chemistry, and you protect your body during the process.
It is time to completely abandon the myth that just because something comes from the earth, it is harmless and gentle. Nature is not gentle. Nature is a highly advanced, uncompromising biochemical laboratory. When you consume a plant like garlic, you are directly interacting with powerful, reactive defense mechanisms that have evolved over millions of years. You can no longer plead ignorance. You now understand the severe, unyielding pharmacology of allicin. You know that swallowing it raw on an empty stomach is not a health hack. It is a reckless chemical assault on your gastric mucosa that can lead to internal bleeding. You know that throwing it instantly into a hot skillet renders it biologically dead and entirely useless to your cardiovascular system.
You know the severe toxicological risks of pre-peeled garlic and oil, and most importantly, you understand that combining this natural blood thinner with prescription anticoagulants can push your body into a fatal hemorrhagic crisis. I am challenging you today to reject the dangerous, oversimplified advice of alternative health gurus who tell you to ignore clinical science. Stop treating your digestive system like an indestructible steel pipe, and stop treating powerful medicinal plants like casual snacks. I need to hear from you right now. Go into the comments section below. Have you ever fallen victim to the raw garlic morning trend? Did you experience that intense burning in your upper abdomen, the severe bloating, or the acid reflux that internet experts falsely told you was just your body detoxing? Share your exact experience. We need to expose these dangerous practices together and protect the seniors in this community who are actively damaging their gut lining. And if you are committing to never eating dead garlic again, and you are adopting the 10-minute enzyme rule and the clinical buffer protocol starting today, I want you to type the words, "I am protecting my gut today," in the comments right now to seal that commitment. Your vitality is not a guessing game. It is a biological science, and it requires precision. If you want uncompromising clinical truth about how to age with power, protect your cellular integrity, and avoid the dangerous traps of the modern wellness industry, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Respect your biology, honor the pharmacology, and I will see you in the next clinical masterclass.